When it came to the Duke, even a brief meeting could provide a lifelong anecdote. We asked people to send us their memories. Our inbox was inundated with stories like Sunil Dharmabandhu's memories of Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, in 1954 when the Queen and Prince Philip visited.
The reception for the Queen and Prince Philip was well underway. I was 8. I managed to lose my way and lost my parents. Then came a policeman and took me by my hand and took me to the tent where the public address system was installed. So everything was stopped to make an announcement asking my parents to come and pick me up. So when my father came up very close to where the Queen and Prince Philip were seated to take me back to where they were, I was not interested in seeing the Queen. I was so pleased to have been able to see my parents back.
After a year where there's been so much loss and so much grief, it might seem startling that the death of a 99-year-old man could cause so many people to stop, pause and reflect. But perhaps it speaks to the Duke's longevity, to the breadth of his interests and his character, that an encounter with him seems difficult to forget. Imam Qari Yassin met him at Buckingham Palace in 2005 with a group of other faith leaders.
It was an extraordinary meeting in that he used his wit and wisdom to communicate. He was very considerate, but also very knowledgeable about other religions.
Some didn't even have to meet the Duke to be struck by him. Harry Emmett from Accrington is a hobby photographer. In 1977, Harry and friends wrote to Buckingham Palace. They asked if they could use some wildlife photographs taken by the Duke in their Camera Club's annual exhibition at this local art gallery.
I received a phone call from Norman Potter, who was at the time curator at the Howarth Art Gallery, who said, "I've just had a phone call about you from Buckingham Palace." You know, the Duke, London, Buckingham Palace, Accrington. The fact that we had been recognised and been trusted to take these photographs was quite a surprise.
Yeah, my father was working out in the Middle East for the Iraq Petroleum Company around the early 1960s. And him and his best friend were doing up a boat, a Flying 15 boat, which required a total overhaul. So they needed some sails. So they wrote to the UK Flying 15 Association, seeing if anyone had any sails they could send out. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, they got this parcel in the post with a handwritten letter from none other than the Duke of Edinburgh saying, "Here's some sails, enjoy it. I hope you have good fun with it," which I thought was a lovely touch for someone who's so busy.
My father was commanding officer on the Trinity House Patricia at the time in 1981. Hence, he was obviously hosting the Duke on board. It must have been nearly 20 years later. My father got invited to the garden party at Buckingham Palace, and he was able to take 2 children, so I went along. Whilst the Duke came down his line, he actually broke away from his equerry, made a beeline for my dad, and he came over and had quite an informal chat with us all, which was really, really lovely.
The Duke was described to us today as a legend. His legacy, certainly, hard to forget. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News.